to this special edition of the Ril Dil Podcast. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald-Quinn. As I continue to look back at the classic games, tonight we are looking back because of course, you have Michael Jordan's the Bulls documentary coming up next Sunday, The Last Dance. We are looking back at Game Five of the 1991 NBA Finals. Lakers, Bulls. Bulls came into that game up 3 games to 1, looking for their first ever championship. Michael Jordan was looking for his um, first ever championship in the NBA. Of course, he had been in the league. He had been in the league. This was his 7th year in the league, and at that point in time, the rap on him was, yeah, great school player, maybe the best player in the league, but can't win the big one, can't beat the Pistons, can't beat, not better than Magic, not better than Bird, and what have you. That you had that narrative going on during that time, but he wiped away, of course, the Pistons in the series before that in 4 game sweep, and he was looking seeking his NBA championship, his career. Um, as always, we are streaming this live on YouTube channel. This will be available via Stitcher, Blog Talk Radio, Spotify, iTunes as well. So you can find us in many various platforms. And I thought I chose this game because I thought that I thought this was a shift in the league as far as whose league it was, and this was, to me, this was the official crowning of a new king in terms of Michael Jordan. And I thought it was one. I remember the game. I remember the game as a kid, especially rooting for the Lakers, being a Magic Johnson fan that I was, and we'll talk about the ramifications of this game as neither franchise would ever be this game. Now, coming into this game, the Lakers were completely dominated by the Bulls in Game 4, 97-82. The Bulls were at this point had established themselves as being a superior team, younger, more athletic. To add injury to insult, the Lakers came into this game with no James Worthy, no Byron Scott. Would it have made a difference? Probably not over big picture. Maybe they could have won this game, but they were not going to win the series. The Bulls were a superior basketball team. That's all there is to it. But the Lakers still had Magic Johnson, and you look at this lineup that the Lakers had to roll out there with no Byron Scott and no James Worthy. You're talking about, okay, they have Magic, Terry Teagle, AC Green, Sam Perkins, and Bly Divac, with Tony Smith coming off the bench and Eldon Campbell. And that was it. Lakers only played 7 players in that game. 7. The Bulls played 10. Okay. And all the Bulls who played at least 7 minutes or more. So the Bulls were younger, deeper, and just frankly at this point in the series, just clearly more talented. But you look at this game, the Lakers. This is why I think that if you forget how great Magic Johnson was, and if you forget that this guy probably, we can debate this, we can go back and forth. I mean, there probably haven't been, in terms of impact on the game, in terms of versatility, probably not 3 players in the history of the league that were more impactful than Magic Johnson in the history of the league, wherever you want to rank them. I mean, there was no way in the world that the Lakers should have been in this game. There's no. I mean, you look at the Bulls lineup from top to bottom. You look at the way the Bulls played for the most part. They shot 53% for the game. Lakers, both teams shot well. A bunch of turnovers for both teams. Both teams were in double digits in turnovers. Even in the first half, they were in double digits in turnovers. But there was no way that the Lakers were even supposed to be in this game, and it was on the pure will and the just way that Magic Johnson could uplift the team, his leadership, his moxie, his just, it's, I mean, as a Magic Johnson fan growing up, and in this game, Magic would go for 16, 20, and 11, 20 assists. Didn't shoot the ball well, and there's a reason why he didn't shoot the ball well. We'll get into that. But this was a game that, for the most part, when you look at it through 3.5 quarters, I mean, it was a tie game with about 6 minutes left. It was a tie game with about 6 minutes left, and then of course you have John Paxson just shoot the lights out in the fourth quarter, and that was all she wrote. Paxson was 9 for 12 for 20 points. A couple things in this game. Number one, just the idea that you had mano a mano in terms of superstars. Magic and Michael are two of the top, in most people's eyes, two of the top five players in history. There's some people that have Magic Johnson right behind Michael Jackson. There are some people that have Magic right behind Michael Jordan. I mean, there are people out there that there are people who think Magic Johnson is the second greatest player of all time behind Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan guarded Magic Johnson the entire game. The entire game. He guards Magic Johnson the entire game, puts up 30, 10, and 8 with 5 steals. And it was an easy 30 points. It was an easy 30 points. I don't care. You could live 100 years from here on, from 2020 on. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see Kevin Garnett, Kevin Durant guard LeBron James the entire game. You're not going to see LeBron James guard the Greek Freak the entire game. You're not going to see Kawhi Leonard guard Kevin Durant. It just, I mean, it just doesn't, it just will ever, never happen. Ever. And I appreciated watching this game, watching, you know, Michael Jordan saying, listen, this is my league now. It's mine. You had your time. You had 5 rings. You went to the finals 9 times in 12 years. It is mine. I'm going to take it from you. And despite that, Magic Johnson, 16, 20, and 11. And you're looking at, a couple things. Number one, and I love Marv Albert and Fratello, the czar, the telestrator, were tremendous as a team. They were tremendous as a broadcast team. Marv Albert is the best there's ever been in play-by-play in terms of the NBA, by far. It's not even close. Marv Albert is the best ever. But Marv Albert saying that the Bulls bottled up Magic Johnson was just not the case in that series. Now, they made Magic work. But Magic Johnson, the thing that made Magic so great and the thing that made him so dominant is Magic Johnson could dominate the game without taking a shot. And he single-handedly basically kept them in this game on just his moxie, his enthusiasm, his passing. Now he had a lot of turnovers, and Magic was always a high turnover player because he always had the ball in his hands. You go back and look at Magic's numbers; he always was amongst the league leaders in turnovers. Just just the way it is when you always have the ball for the most part, and he took chances with the ball. But this game was a nip and tuck game. It was a classic game where you know who the better team is. When you watch the teams play, when you watch the teams run, you see the athleticism of Chicago with Michael Jordan in his physical peak, 28 years old, Scottie Pippen, 25 years old, Horace Grant, 25 years old. And the Bulls had a young team. They had a couple of veterans mixed in, Craig Hodges, John Paxson, guys like that. But for the most part, their core players were young players. All of them, their core players, their best players were all under 30. Early on, again, classic case of home team. This would be the last finals game ever played at the Los Angeles Forum. And that was a great crowd. Now, I love Staples. And we've heard Staples loud, with 2007, Game 7, 2000, with Portland, that comeback, pretty loud in some NBA Finals. But there was nothing like a LA Forum crowd. And that was a great crowd because they had to know, down 3-1, that they were not coming back in that series. And it was going to be the last time they saw It was going to be the last time that they saw the team for that season, of course. And great crowd. It's a nip and tuck game throughout the course of the first half. Lakers had a halftime lead of 49-48. How the Lakers were up in the first half was a miracle because Magic did have 6 points and 10 assists in the first half, but the Lakers were turning over the ball left and right. The Bulls again kept them in the game because the Bulls also had a bunch of turnovers. Jordan in this game was like a chess master. He at this point in his career, he was past the point of he had passed that point of not trusting his teammates. He had an easy 30 points. He might have forced two, three shots in the entire game, and that some of those were due to shot clock running out and what have you. But he was in clear, he was in total control of this game from a standpoint of he absolutely you had saw him finally master the game from a mental standpoint. We all knew Jordan as a great athlete, Air Jordan, the dunk contest, 37 points a game in a season, but he had mastered the entire game come 1991, and in that game where he just let the game come to him. I mean, he's up there, he's throwing the ball down to Bill Cartwright. He's passing the ball to hitting B.J. Armstrong for assist, hitting John Paxson, Craig Hodges. He went out his way in this game in the beginning to really try to get his teammates involved in the game, and it paid dividends in that fourth quarter as you saw John Paxson go crazy with jump shot after jump shot after jump shot. Was this one of Jordan's best performances? I mean, Jordan's had this with this crack. Jordan's, I think, you look at the sheer numbers. I think this is a legit top five Michael Jordan performers in the finals. I think it cannot be lower than fifth. Of course, you got to go 98, game six, Utah, maybe game five, Phoenix, or game four, Phoenix 93, the 55-point game. So those games stand out. But this was a legit, and of course, first half of Portland, game one, 92. So there you go, right there. Those are probably the three best Michael Jordan performances in the finals. Utah 98, Utah 98, Phoenix 93, game four, and Portland 92, game one, 35 and a half, 6 3 points in a quarter. This probably has to be fourth or fifth. Probably fourth because in this game, again, he's still playing against Magic John. He's still playing against Magic Johnson. Decisive game, not decisive game, but series clinching game. And I cannot overemphasize the fact that he had to he guarded Magic Johnson the entire game for 48 minutes. Think about that. Magic Johnson, Magic, Pippen, and Jordan all played the entire game, which again it would not happen in 2020. Would not happen in the least bit in 2020. There's no way that's happening in 2020. So he's not only is he the other team's best player and one of the all-time greatest players ever in his prime. I mean, that was still peak prime Magic at that point in 1991. He scores 30-10, has 30-10-8 with also 5 steals. Just one of those performances that kind of get lost in the Jordan archives. I think I didn't again when this game happened. I was 12 years old, or maybe 13. So all I remember is the Lakers lost, and I do remember Magic Johnson with 20 assists. I remember him having a bunch of assists. I did not realize that Jordan went up against guarded Magic the entire game. That I did not realize that. And I'm watching the replay of this. I'm waiting. I'm like, okay, at some point they're gonna switch off, have Pippen on him. At a certain point, give Jordan a little rest. No, didn't happen. And that was to me, that was Michael Jordan saying, yeah, we're going back to Chicago alone. We're not bringing the Lakers back with us in Chicago. Great performances out of the role players in this game. I already mentioned Paxson. Terry Teagle, Tony Smith. Tony Smith, remember Tony Smith? Came off the bench, a rookie. Came off the bench, had a nice game. The Laker bench played well for the most part. Their role players played well. Tony Smith, Terry Teagle, Divac, even Divac was pretty good in this game. But the athleticism of the Chicago Bulls was too much. This Scottie Pippen in this game was 32, 13, 7, and 5. 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 steals. Probably the best playoff game that Scottie Pippen's ever played. Now he did have I think six or seven turnovers. Both him and Jordan were high in the turnover. Both of them had like 13 turnovers between them, but it didn't matter. Pippen was all over the place in this game, and the synergy between Jordan and Pippen was, I think, at an all-time high. To be honest with you, from in terms of athleticism, in terms of where they were at in their careers, you could see how thirsty both of them were for a championship, especially Jordan, of course. But they were like one when they played in this game. I mean, they were all over the place. They were trapped. There were plays in this game where Jordan was pressing full court. Like he was picking up Magic full court, which again, stuff that you just don't see in the NBA in 2020. Not to knock today's game, but I mean, you're talking about picking up full court in a finals game where guys are tired. It's the end of the season. You've played probably you're in game 90 to 95 games up until that point. I mean, that is just remarkable to me. And again, what they did to Magic Johnson, even in this game, is they just had him. They didn't shut him down. They didn't stop him. They just made him work hard and had him uncomfortable at times, and made him look human at times. Magic Johnson's posts and his fingerprints were still all over this game because there was no way that the Lakers should have ever been in this game. I'd seen this game a couple of times. I hadn't seen this game in a long time. At least it had been at least I want to say 15 years since I've seen this game, though, because I tend not to watch games that the Lakers lose, you know, which is something that you can't say about me now. We did the Kobe a couple weeks ago. We did Lakers Celtics game 7, 2010. Lakers won. You can't say that I can't. You can't say that I'm playing favorites and didn't do a game that the Lakers. This is a game I chose a bunch of Jordan games. I mean, he won 6 championships and had a number of playoff moments. But this game stood out. This game signaled the change, a clear changing of the guard in the NBA. Um, Again, this game was nip tucked throughout the course of the game. Throughout the course of the game, it was dominated by quarters in terms of the Bulls. Scottie Pippen was dominating the third quarter. He really took off, and basically him and Jordan were having a dunk contest in the third quarter with the steals, the fast breaks, getting out, forcing a number of forcing Laker turnovers left and right. He had a big third quarter, and then of course John Paxson put the wraps on it in the fourth quarter with a shooting exhibition where he had to make at least 4 or 5 straight jump shots that in essence put the Lakers away. Again, no, this was a Laker team. When you look back on it, I look back on it years later. This Laker team probably shouldn't have been in the NBA Finals. I think that this is one of Magic Johnson's most underappreciated, underrated achievements. I mean, he's been the Finals MVP 3 times, 5-time world champion, been All NBA, did everything that you can do for that a player can do. But getting this team to the NBA Finals, I don't think this was not a vintage Laker team. Even with a healthy James Worthy and Byron Scott, it still was not a vintage Laker team. They were at the end of the rope. They were at the end of the rope. Worthy not Worthy was at the end of his prime. No Kareem, of course. And to get to in Portland, I thought Portland. A lot of people thought Portland Now, this is, you heard Fratello in the broadcast was said that a lot of people thought Portland was the best team entering the playoffs and entering the playoffs that year. The Lakers got by them in 6 games, and Portland, of course, would make the finals in '90, and of course would losing to the Pistons in '90 and losing to the Bulls in '92. Portland had a lot of weapons. Was a deep basketball team as well. But again, thing that stood out about this game was just the difference in athleticism. I mean, the Lakers are a little bit more physical with Magic in his post game, like Divac and Eldon Campbell down low. But the Bulls were just in terms of being fleet of foot and just were just up and down, getting up and down the floor, can go from offense to offense in a split second. The idea of having Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan hound you for 94 feet was just terrifying if you're if you're bringing the ball up. And it kind of like, I wonder, they made a change after game one because Magic Johnson had his way with Michael Jordan in game one when Jordan was guarding. Let's be honest about that. And whoever guarded him, whether it was Jordan or Paxson, Magic Johnson was put on a clinic. They switch up in game two, go Pippen, and kind of like what Pippen did to Magic Johnson was just go to his body, so to speak, like use a boxing analogy, went to the body, and basically said, all right, it's not a decisive game, it's a clinching game, elimination game for them. Let's knock them out with Michael Jordan, and that's kind of what that's kind of I wonder if that was the strategy looking back on it now because Pippen at that point, Pippen was 3 years younger than Jordan, 2 or 3 years younger than Jordan, was doing a good job, as good a job you can ever do on Magic Johnson. Pippen did not guard Magic Johnson one time in that game. Maybe he picked him up on maybe one switch, but when they were in half court situations and when it was one on one, it was Jordan. It was Jordan guarding Magic. That was all there is to it. There was no switching. There was no even Jordan was famous, of course, for fighting through screens. That didn't happen. There was no switching off. You didn't get matchups where you would get Paxson on Magic or Pippen on Magic or Horace Grant on Magic. No, 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 no. This was Jordan guarding Magic the entire time. This, of course, would be the last finals game for Magic Johnson of his career. And you think about it with Magic Johnson, what could have been had he not retired with the HIV. Of course, nobody knew about HIV back then, and people were scared and terrified. And, people thought Magic was going to die. And this was it. I know Magic came back for the Olympics and also the All-Star game in '92, and he came back briefly, that half season in January of '96, and that those games have been on recently on NBA TV. The Golden State game when he came back, and Chicago Bulls, of course, when he first played them back when they had that 72 win team in '96. But this was like the last great view that you had of one Magic Johnson in his prime, picking people apart with his passes, using his body in terms of just when Magic got you in the post, it was game over. Like Magic in the post was virtually unstoppable. And I think it's easy to get caught up. It's almost easy to forget how dominant Magic Johnson was. I mean, Magic Johnson, even a B- game from Magic Johnson would be an A+ for most. And in this game, again, he had a struggle shooting. I think in this game he was like four. He was only 4 for 12. He made a couple threes. He made all his free throws, ended up with 16 points. But 20 assists and 11 rebounds. He again kept the Lakers in this for the better part of the game up until the end of the fourth quarter, the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And I just think that the Bulls when you look back on this Chicago Bulls team, uh, I think that this Bulls team was the second best of all the Bulls teams that won the championship. I really do. The Bulls ran through the playoffs 15-2. The Bulls, again, you had peak prime Michael Jordan. He's at his, you know, he's completely, again, mastered the game. He's like a Jedi right now. He was like a Jedi with athleticism at that point. Not forcing anything, picking people apart with his passing. He averaged 11 assists for the finals, was unanimous. I would have to think probably the first unanimous MVP. He was unanimous MVP in this series, and Pippen was great in the playoffs, in the series, and in the playoffs as well. Pippen was 21. Basically, Pippen was 21-6, 21-6. Um, Pippen was basically 21-9-6, or 21-6-9 for the playoffs that year. And again, this game, Pippen was all over the place. Pippen, might have been the best. I would say probably the best playoff game. That may be the best, considering the circumstances, considering the fact that it was a finals game, the best playoff game Scottie Pippen's ever played. So the Bulls would win the championship, 108-101. Um, and again, this game was very close. I mean, this is a very close game where the Bulls pulled away late. Um, you saw the Bulls at times try to force the Lakers into an up tempo game because they knew they had an advantage in foot speed. They would trap the Lakers, press the Lakers full court. They would trap the Lakers. They would, like Pippen. Really, this Pippen started. With Magic on Jordan, with Jordan on Magic, it allowed Pippen to just kind of be like a nightmare in terms of being a free safety. Pippen was just, would double team people and get steals, or just harass people with various double teams. He calls all types of chaos with Jordan being the primary defender on Magic. You saw how the depth of the Chicago Bulls, like I said, they went 10 deep in this game, and they had at least 10 players play 7 or more minutes. You got guys like Craig Hodges, Livingston coming off the bench, Scott Williams, those guys coming off the bench. I think Armstrong was coming off the bench at this point stage in his career. So they went. So Phil Jackson used his bench effectively over the course of this game. Lakers only went 7 deep because between the injuries and between the fact that Mike Dunleavy didn't trust anybody past those guys, he had no choice but to only play 7 players. You saw a young Elton Campbell who ended up having a very good career, have some moments in this game. Saw Sam Perkins play a very good game. Sam Perkins actually has some nice playoff games in his career. Even when he go back to his years with Seattle, remember that Game 7 against Houston back in I want to say '93. Game 7 '93. I think it was Game 7 in '93 against Houston. He had a big game in that decisive game. So Perkins played well in this game, but the difference was the Bulls role players and that bench, and of course, when you're getting 60, you got 62. Think about this: you had between Pippen and Jordan, you get 62 points, 17 assists, 21 rebounds, and 10 steals between 2 players. It was just remarkable. After this game, of course, I said earlier, this would be the last game, the last finals game of the four. The Spurs would close it down in '99 with a 4-game sweep in the Western Conference Finals, and of course that would follow up with the Lakers winning 3 straight championships at Staples as Staples began, and Staples became early on the house that Shaq built, but later, of course, the house that Kobe built as well. Um, After this game, you thought, okay, Magic's still in his prime. You got some young pieces with Divac, Eldon Campbell are young. You retool, be back in the final. Maybe you get another rematch between Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. That, of course, was not the case. Magic Johnson, of course, would retire with HIV. The Lakers would make the playoffs the next 2 years and get eliminated in the first round of both. They lost to Portland in 4 games in '92. They would lose a great, really unusual but great series to Phoenix in '93 with a bunch of just cast-offs. I mean, that Laker team in '93 had it was nobody on that. That was, man, Sedale Threed and Byron, I think Byron Scott was still on that team, and I mean Worthy was still there, but that team was one of the stranger Laker teams in recent memory that you'll ever see. D-Rock was on there, of course. Elton Campbell was on the team. Just a strange, feisty Laker team, but a strange Laker team at that would lose, and then of course um, they would not become a factor in terms of competing for a championship again until Shaq got there in the summer of '96, and of course they would go to NBA Finals in 2000. So the Lakers went 9 years following this game until they played their next finals game. Of course, it was the polar opposite with the Chicago Bulls. This was the first of three straight championships in 6 and 8 years. Only years that they didn't win it was when Jordan was either retired or he came back halfway at the end of the season, towards the latter part of the season, late March in 1995. So it was a real shift in the NBA. And this was, we've been doing podcasts on The Wire and thanks to Rob Sapp for tuning in the episode last night. We've been doing podcasts with The Wire. This was the Avon Marlowe moment in season 3, if you remember. Like the crown was passed. And Jordan was Marlowe, of course. And he took it and never let it go. He never let it go. From that point on, Jordan was the best player. Anytime Jordan was played a full season, the Bulls never lost a championship. The first of 6 championships, 6 Finals MVPs, not even a Game 7 in any of those championship series in the finals. So this was the beginning of the end for the Lakers, until 2000, and just the beginning for the Chicago Bulls. Again, I think this was a great Bulls team. I think this Bulls team, outside the outside the '96 Bulls, was the second best Bulls team in the Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, during that 10 year and during all those championship runs. I really think it was. I really think it was even better than the '92 Bulls, and even better than the '97 Bulls, who were great teams as well. Both those teams won 60+ games, and probably both those teams had better regular season records. But I'm looking at the playoffs. This team rolled in the playoffs. And they destroyed people in the day. I mean, a lot of these games in the playoffs weren't even close. They did not have a lot of close games in the playoffs for the most part. And maybe a couple against Philly, and the 2 against the Lakers. But they rolled Detroit. They destroyed the Knicks. And going 15-2. You could tell, at the end of the game, Jordan was more. They showed the locker room celebration. Watched about 5-6 minutes of that. Jordan was he was exhausted and relieved. There was not a lot of celebration by Jordan. Of course, he has that iconic moments with his father where he's crying and he's holding the trophy, and his wife is sitting next to him. Well, maybe not according to Bob Costas, who made the mistake of calling Michael Jordan's wife his mom, because she had a hat on. A young Bob Costas at that. How about Bob Costas in the locker room doing locker room reporting? Just shows you how long ago that was. Have Steve Snapper Jones on the sideline, Ahmad Rashad on the sideline. So this was, of course, it was a NBC, NBA on NBC, and that's the coverage. NBC by far to me had the best coverage. Now I know those who are older than me are going to go back to the CBS days with Dick Stockton, who was great, Tommy Heinsohn, who was great even as a Celtic in some of those games. But I love the NBA on NBC with Mark Bauer and when they later on with Bill Walton doing games and Steve Snapper Jones, and even with Matty Gukas, who did some games in the mid '90s. When the Bulls were still with championships, but a different time for sure, different game. Um, Jordan in this series only attempted like 4 3-pointers in this entire series. He shot over 55. He shot over well over 50% for this entire in this series, and he only I think he let me I think he shot 55% for the series. Look here. Can check cumulatively. Jordan shot 55%. Think about that. 55% in the NBA Final Series. So he's basically 31-11. He was 31, 31, 6, and 11 on 55% shooting over the course of this series. Different game. Both teams, not even the Lakers, neither one of these teams shot a lot of threes. The Lakers probably shot more than the Bulls, but just a completely different game as in comparisons to where we at 2020. Again, the last signature performance for Magic Johnson, or the last big time, the last real performance, the last in a big game for Magic Johnson's in a Laker uniform. And it was again a changing of the guard and the beginning for the Chicago Bulls, the Chicago Bulls dynasty. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. As always, you can find us on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and later on, I will certainly put this podcast on Blog Talk Radio as well. We have a podcast coming up later on in the week. Stay tuned for that and much, much more. And I will see you next time with another classic game on the Real Deal Podcast. Be safe. So long.